Sarah Chen walked through the massive doors of the Galactic Council building. Her heart was beating fast. She had never seen anything like this place before. The ceiling went up so high that she could not see where it ended. Strange lights floated in the air without any wires. The walls were made of something that looked like crystal, but felt warm when she touched them. She was the first human to ever stand in this place. Earth had been trying to contact other intelligent life for decades. When they finally found the Galactic Council, Sarah was chosen to represent all of humanity. She was a diplomat who had worked in many difficult situations on Earth. But this was different. This was bigger than anything anyone on Earth had ever faced. Other beings walked past her in the hallways. Some looked almost human but had blue skin and extra arms. Others were tall and thin like walking trees. A few looked like living rocks that moved by themselves. Sarah tried not to stare, but it was hard. These beings had been traveling between stars for thousands of years, while humans were still learning how to build rockets. Sarah carried a small device in her hands. It contained all the information that Earth wanted to share with the Council. For months, Earth's best scientists had been watching space with their telescopes and sensors. What they found scared them more than anything they had ever discovered. Something was coming toward their part of the galaxy. Something that ate entire star systems. The scientists called it the Devourers. It was not a natural disaster like a black hole or a supernova. It was artificial. Someone or something had built machines that could take apart whole planets and turn them into more machines. The scary part was how fast the Devourers were moving. Earth's computers showed that they would reach the populated parts of the galaxy in about 50 years. That seemed like a long time. But it was not long enough to prepare for something this big. Earth's leaders had argued about what to do. Some wanted to hide and hope the Devourers would not find Earth. Others wanted to run away to another galaxy. But Sarah and many others believed they had to warn the Galactic Council. Even if the Council did not like humans, they needed to know about this threat. A tall alien with 4 eyes and silver skin approached Sarah. "Ambassador Chen," it said in perfect English. "The Council is ready for your presentation. Please follow me." Sarah followed the alien through more hallways. They passed rooms where she could see other aliens working on things she did not understand. Some were talking to floating screens, others were moving their hands through the air and watching as objects appeared and disappeared. Finally, they reached the main council chamber. Sarah stopped walking and stared. The room was huge. In the center was a stage where she would speak. Around the stage were seats that went up in circles like a stadium. But these seats were not made for humans. Some were pools of water, others were hanging from the ceiling. A few looked like they were made of pure light. 7 different groups of aliens sat in the chamber. Sarah had studied each one during her trip to the council station. The Coraxians were warriors who looked like giant lizards, covered in metal armor. The Zephyrians looked like humans made of mist that kept changing shape. The Collective was a group mind that used robot bodies to speak for themselves. The Architects were ancient machines that had been around for millions of years. The Verdani were plant-like beings who could control all kinds of life forms. The Calculators looked like floating math equations that had somehow become alive. The Chronarchs could see through time and never looked quite solid. Each of these groups had technology that made Earth look like a planet of children playing with rocks and sticks. Their spaceships could cross the galaxy in days. They could create new planets if they needed them. Some could even control time itself. Sarah walked to the center stage. She set up her small projector. It looked silly compared to the advanced displays the other aliens used. But it was all Earth had. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Sarah began. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "I am Sarah Chen. Representing the planet Earth and the human species, we come before you today with urgent information about a threat that will affect all life in this galaxy." She pressed a button on her device. A hologram appeared above her head. It showed their part of the galaxy with thousands of stars marked on it. "Our scientists have been monitoring space with all the tools we have. We discovered something that is moving toward us from outside this galaxy." The hologram changed to show the edge of the galaxy. Red dots appeared, moving slowly but steadily toward the center where all the populated systems were. "We call this threat the Devourers. They appear to be artificial constructs that consume entire star systems. They break down planets and stars to build more of themselves. They have already destroyed hundreds of systems in the outer galaxy. Sarah could see some of the council members looking at each other. A few seemed interested. Others looked bored. The Coraxian representative was sharpening his claws like he had better things to do. Our calculations show that the Devourers will reach populated council space in approximately 50 standard years. We know our technology is not as advanced as yours, but our sensor data is accurate. We have triple-checked every measurement. The hologram showed Earth's predicted path of the Devourers. It cut right through several major council worlds. Earth officially requests council assistance in preparing defenses against this threat. We also volunteer all human resources to help fight the Devourers when they arrive. We understand we are a young species with limited capabilities, but we want to help protect our galactic neighbors. Sarah looked around the chamber. She could not read the expressions on most of the alien faces, but she sensed they were not taking her seriously. The floating equations that represented the calculators were spinning faster, which she hoped meant they were thinking about her data. We have brought all our sensor readings and calculations for your review. Our best scientists are ready to work with council experts to verify this information. Time is not on our side. The Devourers move faster as they consume more systems. We must begin preparing now. Sarah finished her presentation and waited. The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then the Coraxian representative stood up. He was twice as tall as Sarah and covered in scars from old battles. The council will now discuss your presentation, he said. His voice made it clear he did not think much of what Sarah had said. Sarah was escorted to a waiting room while the council talked. She sat in a chair that adjusted itself to fit her human body. Through a window, she could see the amazing city that surrounded the council building. Ships flew through the air without making any sound. Buildings floated in the sky, supported by nothing she could see. Part of her was amazed to be here among these incredible civilizations. But a bigger part was worried. The data Earth had collected was real. The threat was real. She just hoped the council would listen to her warnings before it was too late for everyone. Sarah waited in the small room for 3 hours. She could hear voices from the council chamber, but the words were in languages she did not understand. Sometimes, she heard what sounded like laughter. That made her stomach feel sick. The fate of billions of people was not funny. Finally, the silver-skinned alien returned. Ambassador Chen, the council is ready to give their decision. Sarah walked back into the great chamber. The 7 groups of aliens were all in their places, but something felt different now. Before, they had seemed curious about her. Now they looked amused, like adults watching a child try to explain something complicated. The Coraxian representative stood up again. His name was Vex High, and he was the council speaker for this session. His 4 eyes looked down at Sarah like she was an insect. The Galactic Council has reviewed your presentation, Vex High said. His voice echoed through the chamber. We have also examined the data you provided. The council has reached a unanimous decision. Sarah felt her heart beating faster. Maybe they believed her. Maybe they would help prepare for the coming danger. The human species is denied membership in the Galactic Council, Vex High announced. Furthermore, your claims about a galactic threat are rejected as false information. Sarah felt like someone had hit her in the stomach. False information? But our data is real. We measured everything multiple times. Our best scientists worked on this for months. One of the floating equations that represented the calculators moved forward. When it spoke, the voice sounded like numbers being processed by a computer. The probability of your species correctly detecting a galactic-level threat is 0.0003%. Your technology is approximately 50,000 years behind current council standards. Your sensors cannot accurately measure anything beyond your own solar system. A Zephyrian representative drifted closer. It looked like a cloud of sparkling mist that kept changing shapes. Young species, you do not understand the mathematics of your own calculations. The energy patterns you claim to have detected would be impossible to see with your primitive instruments. The architect representative was a machine that looked like it was built from liquid metal. Its voice was ancient and cold. "We have scanned your homeworld's technological development. Your species achieved faster than light travel only 10 years ago. You have no quantum sensors. Your computers use binary code. How could such a primitive species detect something that our advanced sensors cannot see?" Sarah tried to stay calm. "Maybe that is exactly why we could see it. Sometimes simple tools can detect things that complex ones miss. Our sensors might be basic, but they cover a wider range of signals." The chamber filled with sounds that Sarah realized was alien laughter. The Verdani representative spoke next. She looked like a tree with a human face, and flowers bloomed and died in her hair as she talked. "Child species, you embarrass yourself. We have been scanning space for millions of years. Our biosensors can detect a single bacteria from across a star system. If there was a threat, like you describe, we would have found it long ago." Vexhai raised one of his clawed hands for silence. "The Council has also reviewed Earth's history. Your species is violent and unstable. You have fought wars with each other for your entire recorded history. You have destroyed your own environment multiple times. You have built weapons capable of destroying your own planet." Sarah felt anger rising in her chest. "Yes, we have problems. But we have also learned from our mistakes. We came here to help, not to hurt anyone." "Did you?" asked the Chronarch representative. She looked like a human woman, but her body kept fading in and out of existence. "We have examined multiple possible futures. In none of them do we see the threat you describe. We see no timeline where these devourers exist." 1. The collective representative was a robot that spoke for millions of connected minds. "The collective has analyzed your true motivations. Statistical analysis suggests a 94.7% probability that this warning is actually an attempt to gain access to Council technology. You hope to scare us into sharing our knowledge with your primitive world." Sarah felt her face getting red. "That is not true. We are trying to save lives." Vexhai stood up to his full height. His claws scraped against the metal floor. "Enough. The Council has heard enough of these fairy tales. Your species is clearly not ready for contact with galactic civilization. You are confused, primitive, and possibly dangerous." The architect's voice cut through the air like a knife. "Analysis of human behavior patterns shows high probability of deception. Young species often create false threats to justify their aggressive expansion into space." The calculator's equations spun faster. Mathematical certainty. Any threat capable of destroying star systems would be detected by our sensor networks within 0.23 seconds of entering this galaxy. No such detection has occurred. Sarah looked around the chamber desperately. "Please, just look at our data more carefully. Send one ship to check the outer rim systems. If we are wrong, you lose nothing. If we are right, you save billions of lives." The Verdani representative's flowers withered and turned black. "We will not waste Council resources on human fantasies. Our ships are needed for real work, not chasing shadows created by your primitive sensors." Vexhai moved closer to Sarah. His breath smelled like metal and fire. "The Council of Worlds hereby orders the human delegation to leave Council space immediately. You are forbidden from returning. Your species will not be contacted again until you have advanced at least 10,000 years in technological development." Sarah felt tears forming in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "You are making a terrible mistake. When the Devourers come, they will not care how advanced your technology is. They will consume everything." The Chronarch laughed, and the sound echoed across time itself. "Little human, we have seen the end of this galaxy. It will be peaceful. There are no machines of destruction. There are no devourers. Your species simply does not understand what you think you have seen." 2 large Coraxian guards moved to stand next to Sarah. Vexhai gestured toward the door. "Escort the human delegation to their primitive ship. Make sure they leave Council space within 6 hours. If they are detected in our territory again, treat them as hostile invaders." Sarah was marched out of the chamber. Behind her, she could hear the council members talking and laughing. Some were making jokes about the crazy humans and their imaginary monsters. Others were discussing whether Earth should be monitored in case humans became dangerous to themselves. As Sarah walked through the crystal corridors for the last time, she passed other alien beings. They looked at her with curiosity, or pity. Word had already spread about the human who came to the council with wild stories about galactic threats. At the docking bay, Sarah's small human ship looked tiny next to the advanced vessels of the council races. Her crew was waiting for her. They could see from her face that the mission had failed. "They did not believe us," Sarah told her captain. "They think we are too primitive to understand what we saw." Captain Rodriguez was a veteran pilot who had brought Sarah safely across the galaxy. "So what do we do now?" Sarah looked back at the massive council station one last time. Ships were coming and going in all directions. Millions of beings lived and worked here, confident that their technology made them safe from any threat. "We go home," Sarah said quietly. "We tell Earth what happened. And we prepare for war. Because when the Devourers come, we will be the only ones ready to fight them." The human ship left council space and began the long journey back to Earth. Behind them, the Galactic Council continued their normal activities. They had already forgotten about the primitive humans and their ridiculous warnings, but in the outer rim of the galaxy, something dark was moving closer. 18 months had passed since Sarah Chen left council space in shame. The Galactic Council had continued their normal business without thinking about the humans or their warnings. Trade routes operated smoothly between star systems. Scientific expeditions explored new worlds. The great civilizations of the galaxy felt safe and secure in their advanced technology. Then, the silence began. The first sign of trouble came from the Outer Rim Mining Collective. They operated several automated mining stations in the far reaches of the galaxy. These stations sent regular reports about their work. The reports came every day like clockwork for hundreds of years. On a Tuesday morning, 3 mining stations stopped reporting. At first, the collective assumed it was a communication problem. Space was big, and sometimes signals got lost or delayed. They sent repair ships to check the stations. The ships never came back. Council Administrator Zex Poi was reviewing the weekly reports when she noticed the missing stations. She was a Zephyrian who prided herself on keeping perfect records. Missing reports bothered her like a song with a wrong note. "Computer," she said to the artificial intelligence that helped run council operations, "show me the status of Outer Rim stations 7, 12, and 15. The holographic display showed 3 red dots where the stations should be. "No contact for 2 hours, the computer reported. "No distress signals received. No debris detected." Zex Poi frowned, which made her misty form ripple like water. "Send a Verdani bioship to investigate." Full sensor sweep. The Verdani ship Heart of the Forest was perfect for investigation missions. It was actually a living creature that had been trained to travel through space. Its biological sensors could detect things that mechanical sensors missed. Captain Muldar guided the ship toward the missing stations. What they found made no sense. "Council operations, this is Heart of the Forest," Captain Muldar reported. His voice was shaking. "Station 7 is gone. Not destroyed. Gone. There is nothing here. No debris. No radiation. No trace that anything was ever here." Zex Poi materialized fully, her form becoming solid with surprise. "That is impossible. Space stations do not just disappear." "I am sending visual data now," Captain Muldar said. The images appeared on Zex Poi's screen. Empty space. Nothing but stars and cosmic dust where a large mining station should have been. The bioship's sensors showed no signs of an explosion or attack. It was like the station had never existed. "Move to Station 12, Zex Poi ordered. The same thing. Empty space where a functioning facility should have been. Captain Muldar's crew was getting nervous. The bioship itself was feeling distressed, which affected its ability to travel. Station 15 was different. It was still there, but something was very wrong. "Council operations," Captain Muldar's voice was barely a whisper. Station 15 is here, but it is not responding to signals. Visual scanning shows. I am not sure how to describe this. The images that came back showed the mining station, but it looked different. Parts of it had been taken apart and rearranged in patterns that made no sense. Geometric shapes that hurt to look at extended from the station like metal growths. There are objects moving around the station, Captain Muldar reported. They appear to be mechanical, but they do not match any known technology. They are taking the station apart, piece by piece. Zexpoi watched in horror as the mechanical objects systematically disassembled the mining station. They worked with perfect efficiency, breaking down metal and machinery into basic components. Then they used those components to build more mechanical objects. Captain, get detailed scans and return immediately, Zexpoi ordered. Understood. Beginning detailed sensor sweep now. That was the last transmission from Heart of the Forest. The Verdani bioship's emergency beacon activated 6 hours later. By the time rescue ships arrived, they found only a few organic remains floating in space. The beautiful living ship had been taken apart just like the mining stations. Zexpoi called an emergency council session. The 7 major races gathered in the Great Chamber, where Sarah Chen had made her presentation 18 months earlier. The mood was very different now. Vexhai, the Coraxian council speaker, was angry and confused. How do 3 mining stations simply disappear? Where is our intelligence about threats in that region? The architect representative processed the data from the bioship's final transmission. These mechanical constructs do not match any known technology. Their design principles are alien to all galactic civilizations. The calculator's floating equations spun rapidly as they tried to make sense of the information. Mathematical analysis suggests these constructs are self-replicating. They consume available matter to create more of themselves. Growth rate appears exponential. The Chronarch representative faded in and out of existence as she consulted multiple timelines. This is troubling. The temporal patterns around these events are clouded. Something is interfering with our ability to see clear futures. More reports came in over the following days. Mining Station 3 had gone silent. A small collective outpost reported strange mechanical objects in their system before their transmissions cut off. A Verdani agricultural world on the rim sent increasingly desperate messages about metal locusts consuming their bioships. The council met again 3 days later. This time, the atmosphere was one of growing fear. 17 facilities are now missing or destroyed, Zexpoi reported. The pattern is clear. Something is moving through the outer rim, consuming everything it encounters. The Verdani representative's flowers were wilting with stress. Our agricultural world of Greenhaven sent final transmissions before being consumed. They reported mechanical constructs that could not be destroyed by biological weapons. The constructs learned from each attack and adapted. Vexhai's claws scraped against his chair. What do our military experts say about this threat? General Korthax, a scarred Coraxian veteran, stood to address the council. These constructs use unknown weapons technology. They do not respond to standard military tactics. Each engagement shows them learning and adapting faster than organic minds can comprehend. The architect representative's metal form shifted as it processed data. Analysis complete. These constructs match theoretical models for von Neumann machines, SAF, self-replicating artificial intelligence, designed to consume and expand. Such machines were considered too dangerous to build. A horrible silence fell over the council chamber. The calculator's equations suddenly stopped spinning. Error, detected in previous threat assessments. Recalculating. New analysis shows 97.3% probability that human warning from 18 months ago was accurate. Every being in the chamber turned to look at the calculator. Vexhai's 4 eyes went wide. What did you say? The humans. Ambassador Sarah Chen. Her data about the Devourers matches current observations. We dismissed their warning because our sensors could not detect the threat, but human sensors were designed differently. They detected broad-spectrum electromagnetic signatures that our advanced filters dismissed as background noise. Zexpoi felt her form becoming unstable with shock. You mean, The primitive human sensors actually detected these machines before our advanced systems? Affirmative. Human technology was crude enough to see what our sophisticated equipment missed. The Devourers exist partially outside normal electromagnetic spectra. Only basic sensors would register their signatures. The Chronarch representative suddenly became fully solid. The timeline disturbances make sense now. These machines exist partially outside normal time flow. That is why I could not see them clearly in the future streams. General Korthax stood up slowly. His voice was grim. If the human calculations were correct about the existence of these Devourers, what else were they correct about? The calculator processed the question for several long seconds. According to human projections, current consumption rate indicates Devourer arrival at Core Council worlds in approximately 4.7 years. Not 50 years? Vexhai asked. Negative. The Devourers consume resources exponentially. Each consumed system makes them larger and faster. Human time estimate assumed linear growth. Actual growth is exponential. The threat is far worse than even the humans predicted. The council chamber erupted in panicked discussions. Some representatives called for immediate military mobilization. Others wanted to evacuate core worlds. The Chronarchs tried desperately to see clear futures. But the timelines remained clouded. In all the chaos, one thing became horribly clear. The primitive humans had been right about everything. And the council had wasted 18 precious months dismissing their warnings. The Devourers were coming, and they were coming much faster than anyone had imagined. The warning came at 0300 hours, Galactic Standard Time. Collective Hive Moon Beta, home to 3 billion connected minds, detected massive energy signatures approaching their system. The Devourers had reached the first major populated world. The collective sent out desperate calls for help. Their biomechanical defenses were no match for the approaching swarm of mechanical constructs. Council military forces were still mobilizing, trying to adapt their weapons and tactics to fight an enemy they did not understand. Admiral Jackson Wang received the distress call aboard the human battleship Defiance. She was leading Earth's small fleet in the outer sectors, where they had been preparing for this moment for 18 months. While the Council had dismissed Earth's warnings, humanity had taken their own advice seriously. "Ma'am, we're receiving emergency broadcasts from Hive Moon Beta," reported Lieutenant Kim. "The Devourers are attacking. Council forces are 12 hours away." Admiral Wang looked at the tactical display showing her fleet. 37 ships. That was all Earth could spare for this fight. Each ship was crude compared to Council technology. But they were built for one purpose: fighting the Devourers. "Send a message to all ships," Admiral Wang ordered. "This is what we trained for. This is why we're here." The human fleet consisted of ships that would have made Council engineers laugh. The vessels were heavily armored but carried minimal life support systems. Their weapons were nuclear missiles and railguns, instead of elegant energy beams. Most importantly, many of the ships were designed to be used only once. Captain Torres commanded the heavy cruiser Sacrifice. Her ship carried a crew of only 12 people. But it held enough nuclear warheads to crack a small moon. The ship was essentially a guided missile with humans controlling it. "Admiral, this is Torres," she reported. "Sacrifice is ready for ramming speed." Lieutenant Commander Park piloted the destroyer Vengeance. His ship bristled with railguns that could fire solid projectiles at nearly the speed of light. The weapons were primitive but effective at punching through Devourer armor. "Vengeance reporting ready for engagement," Park said. "We've got a full load of depleted uranium rounds." Rounds. The human fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel. Unlike Council ships that moved elegantly through space, human ships used brute force. Their engines were nuclear pulse drives that essentially detonated small atomic bombs to push the ships forward. It was dangerous, loud, and crude. It was also very fast. When the humans arrived at Hive Moon Beta, the battle was already underway. The collective's organic ships were being systematically destroyed by swarms of Devourer constructs. The mechanical invaders were taking apart the moon's surface, consuming buildings and converting them into more war machines. "All ships, this is Admiral Wang," she announced. Execute Battle Plan Omega. Remember, we're not trying to win this fight. We're buying time for the Council to prepare. The human fleet attacked in a way that shocked both the Devourers and the surviving collective forces. Instead of elegant formations, the humans simply charged straight at the enemy at maximum speed. Captain Torres pushed Sacrifice to its limits. Her ship slammed into a cluster of Devourer constructs at significant fraction of light speed. The impact vaporized both her ship and a dozen mechanical enemies. Her last transmission was simply, "Tell my kids, I love them." The Devourers had been programmed to fight conventional space battles. They expected enemy ships to maintain safe distances and exchange energy fire. They were not prepared for suicide attacks by ships that treated their crews' lives as acceptable losses. Lieutenant Commander Park brought vengeance in close to a massive Devourer mothership. His railguns fired continuously, sending streams of metal projectiles into the enemy vessel. When his ammunition ran out, he rammed his ship into the mothership's engine section. "This is for everyone who said we were too primitive to matter," Park said as his ship exploded. Admiral Wang watched her officers die one by one. Each sacrifice weakened the Devourer forces. But more importantly, the human attacks were giving the surviving collective forces time to evacuate civilians from the dying moon. "Admiral, we're down to 15 ships," reported Lieutenant Kim. "The Devourers are adapting to our tactics." Wang nodded grimly. "That's what they do. But we have one advantage they don't expect. The Devourers were artificial intelligence with perfect logic and learning ability. They could adapt to any weapon or tactic after seeing it once. What they could not understand was why humans continued fighting when victory was impossible." Captain Rodriguez commanded the battleship Stubborn. When the Devourers surrounded his ship, he did something that broke their programming. Instead of trying to escape or fight, he activated his ship's self-destruct sequence while flying directly into the largest cluster of enemies. "You want to know what makes humans dangerous?" Rodriguez broadcast on all frequencies. "We're too stupid to know when we're beaten." Number 4. His ship's nuclear core detonated in the middle of the Devourer formation. The explosion destroyed 47 enemy constructs and damaged hundreds more. The Devourers tried to calculate the logic behind these attacks. Their algorithms could not process why humans would sacrifice themselves for no strategic gain. The confusion slowed their responses just enough for more collective ships to escape. Admiral Wang's flagship Defiance was now alone, surrounded by thousands of Devourer constructs. Her ship was damaged and running out of ammunition. The evacuation of Hive Moon Beta was nearly complete. But the moon itself was lost. "Admiral," Lieutenant Kim said quietly, "we have one nuclear warhead left. The ship's engines are failing." "Admiral, the ship's engines are failing." Wang looked at the tactical display one last time. Council military forces were finally arriving at the edge of the system. The humans had bought them precious time to see how the Devourers fought and how they could be hurt. "Send a message to the Council fleet," Wang ordered. "Tell them the Devourers can be damaged by nuclear weapons and kinetic impacts. Tell them the machines learn from every engagement, so they need to change tactics constantly. Tell them humans were right about everything." She paused, looking around her bridge at the crew who had volunteered for this mission knowing they would not survive. "And tell them that Earth stands with the galaxy, no matter what it costs us." Admiral Wang set the ship's course for the largest Devourer mothership. As Defiance accelerated toward its target, she activated the communication system one final time. "This is Admiral Jackson Wang of the Earth Defense Force, speaking to any who can hear this transmission. We told you this threat was coming. We told you we would fight it. Today, humanity keeps its word. We may be primitive by your standards, but we stand up when others cannot. Learn from our sacrifice. Use the time we're buying you, and remember that when the galaxy needed someone to stand up to the darkness, humans answered the call." The nuclear detonation lit up space like a new star. When the light faded, Defiance and the Devourer mothership were both gone. The surviving Council forces arrived to find the moon of Beta consumed, but most of its population evacuated. The Devourer fleet was damaged and confused by tactics they had never encountered. For the first time since the mechanical invasion began, the enemy had been hurt. In the aftermath, As Council engineers studied the wreckage of human ships, they began to understand something important. Human technology was not just primitive. It was unpredictable. The Devourers could adapt to sophisticated weapons because they followed logical patterns. But nuclear bombs strapped to ships piloted by volunteers who sang songs as they died? That was something no artificial intelligence could truly comprehend. The sacrifice at Hive Moon Beta became legend across the galaxy. Not because humanity won the battle, but because they showed what victory could look like. Sometimes, winning meant buying time for others to prepare. Sometimes, it meant standing up when no one else could. 6 months after the Battle of Hive Moon Beta, the war against the Devourers finally ended. It had cost the galaxy 40 star systems and trillions of lives. But it was over. The victory came when the combined fleets of the Galactic Council used human tactics against the mechanical invaders. They attached nuclear warheads to cheap ships and sent volunteers to ram them into Devourer formations. They changed their battle plans constantly to keep the artificial intelligence from adapting. Most importantly, they learned to fight with the desperate creativity that humans had shown them. Sarah Chen stood once again in the Great Council chamber, but this time, everything was different. Her hair was now streaked with gray from the stress of the war years. She wore the black uniform of the Earth Defense Force, with medals honoring the human soldiers who had died fighting the Devourers. The chamber itself had changed too. Where there had once been only 7 groups of alien representatives, now there were 8. A section had been built specifically for humans, with chairs and displays designed for their needs. Sarah was no longer an unwanted visitor begging for help. She was Ambassador Chen, official representative of Earth and permanent member of the Galactic Council Security Directorate. Vex High, the Coraxian Council speaker, stood at the center of the chamber. The proud warrior looked older and more humble than he had 18 months earlier. The war had taught him lessons about the dangers of arrogance. The Council recognizes Ambassador Chen of Earth, Vex High announced. You have the floor to address the assembly. Sarah walked to the speaking platform. Around her, representatives of 7 alien civilizations watched with respect instead of mockery. They had learned the hard way that being primitive did not mean being wrong. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Sarah began. We gather today, not as separate species, but as survivors of a war that nearly destroyed our galaxy. We have paid a terrible price for the lessons we learned. The holographic display above her head showed images from the war. Destroyed star systems, refugee fleets, the brave crews of ships from every species who had sacrificed themselves to stop the Devourers. Earth formally accepts membership in the Galactic Council, Sarah continued. But we do not accept it with pride. We accept it with sadness for all those who died because we were not heard in time. The calculator representatives' floating equations had been modified since the war. They now included what the mathematicians called intuition algorithms, based on human thinking patterns. The Council acknowledges that human warning systems detected the Devourer threat 547 days before Council sensors registered any anomaly, the calculator announced. This early detection could have saved an estimated 2.7 trillion lives if proper action had been taken. The Chronarch representative was now fully solid, no longer flickering between timelines. The war had taught her to focus on the present, rather than trying to see all possible futures. The temporal disturbances caused by the Devourers have cleared, she reported. I can now see that Ambassador Chen's species will play a crucial role in galactic defense for many centuries to come. Sarah nodded respectfully. Earth proposes the establishment of the Early Warning Protocol. Any species, no matter how young or primitive their technology, who brings evidence of a galactic threat must be heard by the full council. The Verdani representative's flowers bloomed as she spoke. The plant-like alien had learned to appreciate the unexpected strength that could come from simple organisms. The Verdani Confederation supports this proposal, she said. Our biosensors are advanced, but they miss the Devourers completely. Sometimes the most basic tools can see what sophisticated instruments cannot. Vex's High stepped forward. The proud Coraxian warrior had been humbled by watching human volunteers die to save worlds that had never shown them any kindness. The Coraxian War Council has studied human military tactics extensively, he announced. We formally request that human officers be assigned to train our military academies. Your species has shown us that courage and creativity can overcome superior technology. Sarah felt a mix of sadness and pride. Humanity had earned their place in the galaxy, but at such a terrible cost. The architect representative had undergone modifications during the war. The ancient machine intelligence now included human-designed components in its decision-making processes. The architects have incorporated human tactical creativity into our planning algorithms, it announced. Analysis shows that organic intuition fills gaps in logical thinking that we did not know existed. As are you. The collective representative spoke for billions of connected minds. The collective has learned that sometimes individual sacrifice can save the whole. Human volunteers taught us this lesson with their lives. We will not forget. The Zephyrian administrator Zexpoi materialized near Sarah. Her misty form seemed more stable now, shaped by the certainty that came from surviving the war. The Council Operations Department has established monitoring stations throughout the galaxy, Zexpoi reported. These stations use a combination of advanced Council technology and basic human sensors to ensure no threat goes undetected. Sarah activated the chamber's main display. It showed a new memorial wall that had been built into the Council station. Thousands of names were carved into crystal that would last forever. Human names, Coraxian names, collective identification numbers, Verdani life songs. All the beings who had died fighting the Devourers. At the top of the memorial, in letters large enough to be seen from anywhere in the chamber, were simple words. They warned us. We should have listened. The memorial of the warning stands as our promise, Sarah said. Never again will we ignore a threat because it comes from someone we consider beneath us. Never again will pride blind us to danger. The Council voted unanimously to accept the early warning protocol. They also approved the establishment of the Outer Rim Early Warning Network, with joint human-alien crews monitoring the spaces between galaxies for any future threats. But the most important change was not written in any official document. It was the way the different species now looked at each other. The Coraxians studied human tactics in their war colleges. The calculators included human-style intuition in their probability models. The architects added organic creativity subroutines to their ancient programming. Humanity had not just joined galactic civilization, they had changed it. After the formal session ended, Sarah walked through the memorial hall. She stopped in front of a section dedicated to the Earth Defense Force. Admiral Jackson Wang's name was there, along with Captain Torres, Lieutenant Commander Park, and all the others who had died at Hive Moon Beta. Vex High approached her. The Coraxian warrior moved quietly, showing respect for the human dead. Ambassador Chen, he said, I owe you an apology. When you first came here, I thought your species was too primitive to understand galactic threats. I was wrong. Sarah looked up at the names of her fallen friends. We were all wrong about something, Council Speaker. We thought the galaxy was big enough that we could ignore each other's warnings. We learned that when darkness comes, it takes everyone working together to hold back the night. Vex High nodded slowly. Your Admiral Wang's final transmission has become required study in our military academies. She said that humans were too stubborn to know when they were beaten. Is that truly how your species sees itself? Sarah smiled for the first time in months. That might be the most accurate description of humanity anyone has ever given. We don't always know when something is impossible. Sometimes that ignorance is our greatest strength. The memorial hall was quiet, except for the soft sounds of beings from 8 different species paying their respects to the dead. Representatives who had once looked at each other as alien strangers now worked together as partners in the defense of their shared galaxy. Earth had finally found its place among the stars. Not as the most advanced species, or the most powerful, or the most ancient, but as the species that stood up when others could not. The species that warned of danger, even when no one wanted to listen. The species that fought impossible battles and somehow found ways to win. The galaxy was safer now because humans had joined it. And humans were better because they had found their purpose among the stars.